Treasure hunting on Oak Island isn't just about digging mud and machinery. It's about secrets buried so deep they outlive generations, rivalries that quietly shape decisions, and gambles so dangerous they can either build a legacy or destroy it completely. And what you're about to witness is the boldest move ever made at the legendary Money Pit. Rick Lagina, long surrounded by decades of failed expeditions, wild theories, and unanswered questions, is about to attempt something no one else has dared to truly commit to. Not just another dig, not just another theory, but a calculated attempt to outthink the island itself and uncover millions in hidden treasure lying silently beneath layers of history, waiting for the right moment and the right mind to bring it to light. Before we go any further, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps us keep uncovering the untold mysteries, hidden stories, and silent battles that make Oak Island one of the most fascinating places on Earth. It all began with something most people would have ignored without a second thought. Old papers, forgotten exploration reports from decades ago, stained with coffee, worn by time, and buried deep in storage where no one bothered to look anymore. These weren't official records anyone trusted. They were dismissed years earlier by previous treasure hunters as nothing more than the speculation, outdated guesses not worth the time, effort, or cost. But Rick saw something different. Where others saw junk, he saw patterns. Where others saw dead ends, he saw possibility. And instead of brushing them aside, he slowed down and looked closer than anyone had before. The report spoke of strange anomalies, subtle irregularities in underground readings, faint but consistent disturbances in the soil, patterns that didn't match natural formations. They hinted at something deeper, something hidden far beneath the layers of the Money Pit, invisible to the naked eye, undetectable through surface-level excavation, but potentially massive, potentially real, a hidden system that earlier explorers had unknowingly circled for years without ever truly understanding what they were standing above. Rick didn't rush to announce it. He knew better. Oak Island had a history of bold claims collapsing under scrutiny, and he wasn't about to repeat that mistake. Instead, he played it carefully, quietly. He presented the idea as nothing more than a small side project, an academic curiosity, a low-risk experiment that wouldn't disrupt the main operation. On the surface, it looked harmless, almost insignificant, but beneath that calm approach was something much stronger. Determination that refused to fade. Slowly, he began assembling a focused team, not the loudest voices, not the most skeptical minds, but the ones who had endured years of frustration and were still willing to believe something more was possible. These were people who had chased dead ends long enough to recognize when something felt different. Together, they weren't just working a site anymore. They were stepping into a risk that could change everything. Because for Rick, this wasn't just about treasure. It was about answers. It was about proving that the mystery wasn't just a legend passed down through generations, but something real, something tangible. His legacy, his belief, and his identity as a searcher all rested on whether this one hidden gamble would succeed or disappear like so many attempts before it. But secrecy has a way of attracting attention. Whispers began quietly at first. Conversations between workers, subtle glances, questions that didn't have clear answers. Oak Island wasn't just a site. It was a legacy built on years of effort, and legacies don't operate without scrutiny. People began to notice changes. Rick was focusing on something new. Time and resources were being redirected, and slowly, doubt started spreading. He's chasing another theory. He's wasting time. He's setting himself up for failure again. The skepticism wasn't loud, but it was constant. And when it surfaced openly, the criticism was sharp. Some dismissed his approach entirely, reducing it to nothing more than another hopeful guess in a place full of them. The words carried weight. Anyone else might have stepped back, but Rick didn't. He absorbed it, watched carefully, listened to everything, and made a quiet decision. He wouldn't fight the doubt with arguments or force. He would prove them wrong with precision. That's when the shift began. The team slowly divided. Some veterans stayed rooted in what they knew, trusting proven methods and past experience. But others, more curious, more willing to take risks, began drifting toward Rick. They saw something in his approach. Not recklessness, but control. Not desperation, but clarity. And just like that, a search that had lasted centuries began transforming into something else entirely. All it needed now was proof. That proof came in the form of a map. Old, fragile, weather-stained. Its edges torn, its markings faded almost beyond recognition. At first glance, it looked worthless, just another forgotten artifact, buried under piles of outdated records. But Rick saw something no one else had noticed. Patterns, subtle curves, small markings hidden between lines that didn't seem random anymore. To others, it was nothing. To Rick, it was a key. He laid it beside modern scan data, advanced imaging that revealed the island in ways early explorers could never have imagined. Layer by layer, he compared the two. And slowly, the truth began to emerge. Hidden formations beneath the surface, structures untouched by any previous excavation, pathways that no drill had ever reached. The journals of early explorers added even more weight, describing something buried deeper than expected, as if the island itself had been designed to hide it. Rick's heartbeat quickened. For years, digging had happened all around this exact area, close enough to touch the truth, but never close enough to see it. They had been wrong, all of them, because deep below the money pit lay one of the greatest undiscovered treasures in Oak Island's history, waiting. Rick rolled the map carefully, sealed it, and hid it away. This wasn't something he could risk sharing, not yet, because if even a whisper of this escaped, if the wrong eyes turned toward this location too soon, everything could collapse before it even began. What he had uncovered wasn't just another theory. It was different. It was real. And it had the power to change everything. Rick stood still for a moment, the weight of that realization settling in. Years of searching, of doubt, of chasing fragments of a mystery that never quite revealed itself, had all led to this single point. Not noise, not speculation, but direction, clear, precise, dangerous. For the first time, the island didn't feel like a puzzle without an answer. It felt like something that could finally be solved, but only if he moved carefully, only if he moved first. Because once this path was exposed, there would be no turning back. The quiet balance of the operation would shatter, and every eye would be drawn to the same place. And Rick knew. He couldn't let that happen. Not yet. Not until he was sure. Not until he was ready. So, instead of announcing it, he acted. That night, without warning, without attention, he made his move. Plans drawn in secrecy came alive under the dark skies of Oak Island, where the dig site looked like a graveyard of silent machinery, yet pulsed with hidden intent. In the shadows, Rick Lagina orchestrated something entirely different. While the rest of the operation slept, his trusted team moved equipment across the muddy ground like phantoms. Drilling rigs were activated in short bursts, muted and controlled, so they blended into the natural hum of the site. Tools were carried under tarps, and sensitive equipment was assembled piece by piece, hidden beneath stacks of lumber and excavation debris. By day, everything was disguised so perfectly that it appeared untouched, as if no secret work had ever taken place. Rick's team knew that one mistake, one wrong sound, or one flash of light could expose everything before a single breakthrough was confirmed. But instead of fear, the secrecy gave them purpose. Every layer they uncovered wasn't just effort. It was quiet defiance against decades of failure. Managing resources became the greatest challenge. Every movement, every hour of work had to appear routine. Rick carefully adjusted schedules, masking the hidden operation under normal activity logs, so nothing seemed out of place. To anyone watching, it was just another day on the island, but beneath the surface, something far more calculated was unfolding. Still, Oak Island has never given up its secrets easily. Small inconsistencies began to appear. Equipment usage didn't fully match the logs. Subtle signs hinted that something unusual was happening. At first, it felt like coincidence, but soon the whispers began. People started noticing patterns, asking quiet questions, watching more closely. Inspections became more frequent, appearing at odd hours, lights scanning across the ground where no one expected them. Rick had anticipated this. To protect the real work, he created distractions. Visible activity was increased in other areas, drawing attention away from the hidden zone. Noise, movement, and routine operations acted as cover, while the true excavation continued elsewhere, silent and precise. What had started as a simple search was no longer just exploration. It had become strategy. Every move was calculated, every step measured, as if the island itself had turned into a high-stakes game. With each passing night, the pressure grew, but so did Rick's conviction. This was no longer just about treasure. It was about proving that the mystery of Oak Island could finally be solved. Then, everything changed. One night, the system came alive, and what had only existed as theory and belief suddenly became real. Under the dim glow of work lights, the first results began to appear. At first, they were subtle, small indicators that something was different. Then the signs grew stronger, clearer, undeniable. A silence spread across the team as they realized what they were seeing. This wasn't another false lead. This was something real. The data, the material, the signals, all pointed to the same conclusion. When the first full confirmation came in, even Rick paused. For the first time, there was proof, stronger than anything they had found before. The team nearly erupted in excitement, but Rick stopped them immediately. He knew the risk. One careless word could destroy everything. The findings were secured, documented, and hidden within routine records, buried so deeply that no one would think to question them. The next morning, everything appeared normal. The team returned to work as if nothing had changed. But for Rick, everything had changed. He stayed behind for a moment, looking at the ground where it had all begun. For the first time, the search had direction. The mystery wasn't just a story anymore. It was real. But with that proof came danger. Every action left traces, and no amount of planning could erase them completely. Rick knew it was only a matter of time before something went wrong. And that moment came sooner than expected. A transport vehicle moving material from the hidden zone nearly crossed paths with a routine patrol. Both stopped suddenly, lights cutting through the darkness. For a few seconds, everything stood still. If the path had been followed back, the entire operation would have been exposed. The team reacted instantly, covering tracks, restoring the ground, removing any sign of movement. It was a close call, too close. Later that same night, a sudden equipment issue threatened to expose even more. Debris spilled across an area that was about to be inspected. Rick's team rushed to clear it, working against time as lights approached from the distance. From above, a beam swept slowly across the ground, pausing dangerously close to the hidden area. Rick stood frozen, knowing that one more second could end everything. But the light moved on, and the danger passed. The following day brought even more tension. Heavy equipment moved dangerously close to the hidden zone, each movement threatening to uncover the truth. Rick made a difficult decision. Everything stopped. Machines went silent, and the team waited in complete stillness. The risk had become too great. One mistake now would cost everything they had built. Then, just as the pressure reached its peak, everything changed again. The hidden excavation revealed something undeniable. Stronger signals, clearer results, deeper confirmation than ever before. The team stood in silence, realizing what it meant. This wasn't a possibility anymore. This was proof. Rick stood there, taking it all in. Years of searching, doubt, and persistence had led to this moment. This wasn't luck. This was precision. This was belief turning into reality. And the truth they had been chasing for so long had been there all along, buried beneath Oak Island. But discoveries like that don't stay hidden forever, because somewhere else on the island, questions were turning into certainty. And someone was getting closer. All that remained was scarred earth, mud carved into jagged lines, water pooling into shallow pits, ghostly remnants of a discovery so massive it could have rewritten the entire history of Oak Island. Rick's breath came heavy, his chest rising with more than exhaustion. He stared at the silence of the island night and understood what it meant. This wasn't just a dig anymore. This was a breakthrough that had changed everything. With a sudden burst of emotion, he pulled off his helmet and dropped it to the ground. The sound echoed sharply through the still air. "We were closer than anyone ever realized," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. For the first time, the search that had defined generations didn't feel endless. It felt real. Miles away, in a dimly lit operations tent set up away from the main site, Rick gathered his team. One by one, secured containers were opened, their contents reflecting the lantern light like something unreal. Artifacts, dense materials, metallic traces, fragments of history. Everything they had uncovered lay before them. The scale of it was overwhelming, but discoveries like that never stay hidden for long, because the moment something real is found on Oak Island, the island itself seems to push back. At first, it was subtle, so subtle most people would have missed it. Equipment readings began to shift in ways no one could fully explain. Sensors that had remained stable for weeks suddenly showed irregular spikes. Ground reports revealed inconsistencies, areas that should have been solid behaving unpredictably, almost as if something beneath the surface was shifting, settling, or reacting to their presence. Rick noticed it immediately. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was a response. The deeper they pushed into the money pit, the more unstable everything became. Water levels began fluctuating overnight without any clear cause. Sections that had been dry suddenly filled again, forcing pumps to run constantly, yet the water kept returning as if the island itself was resisting exposure. Some of the crew began whispering about it, quietly at first, suggesting that maybe this place didn't want to be solved. Rick didn't entertain the idea out loud, but he didn't dismiss it either. Instead, he focused harder, because if the island was reacting, it meant they were getting closer to something real. That's when the next breakthrough arrived, unexpected, almost accidental. A deeper scan, one that wasn't even part of the original plan, revealed something beneath their current target zone. It wasn't just scattered material or natural formation. This was different. It showed structure, clear, defined, intentional. Something buried deeper than anything they had previously detected, positioned directly beneath the area they had just confirmed. When Rick saw the data, he didn't react immediately. He studied it in silence, understanding the weight of what it meant before anyone else did. Because this changed everything. This wasn't just a hidden deposit or a lucky find. It suggested design, planning, purpose, something that hadn't been lost, but placed. And if that was true, then everything they believed about Oak Island had to be reconsidered. The team gathered again, but this time the energy was different. There was no excitement, no celebration, only focus and tension. Because now the risk wasn't just about losing the discovery, it was about uncovering something they didn't fully understand. Rick finally spoke, his voice calm but heavier than before. He explained that going deeper wouldn't just reveal more, it would expose the entire system beneath them. No one asked questions after that. They didn't need to. By now, they all understood that this was no longer just about treasure. It was about something hidden deliberately, something protected by time, layers, and perhaps even design itself. That night, the site didn't rest. Lights stayed on across the excavation zone, machines ready but waiting. No one moved carelessly anymore. Every step was calculated, every action measured. Beneath the surface, something remained untouched, something older than every failed expedition that had come before them. And for the first time in generations, it was no longer out of reach. It was directly below them, waiting. Whatever lay hidden in the depths of the money pit was no longer just a mystery. It was a reality they were about to confront. And as the silence of the island stretched into the night, one thing became clear. What they were about to uncover wouldn't just change their search, it would change everything.